Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Anders Varner, Doug Larson, Coach Travis Mash, powerlifting coach for Team Sweden, Oscar Bjork. Dude, how's it going, man?
I'm good.
We're at Alico headquarters inside the brand new, well, it's a year old, but brand new to me and brand new to our audience and the viewers.
Yeah.
This place is absolutely gorgeous. We just got done making our own barbells. Have you ever made your own barbell?
I have not.
See, that's messed up. You work here. You're one of the best powerlifting coaches in the country.
Yeah.
You're making everyone stronger, and he won't even let you design your own barbell.
No.
Do you get a free barbell working here, though?
I should bring that up with him. It's a good idea.
Seriously.
You have.
So far,
What
no
are you
barbell.
doing?
I mainly drink coffee, but
The coffee's free.
Dude, coffee's
and delicious.
coffee's such a big thing here. It's like, is it a bigger thing in the wintertime when it's like 20 hours of darkness and it's cold and everyone's just like, I'm fucking staying inside and drinking coffee all day.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the pre-show, you were talking about the powerlifting scene a little bit. You coach Team Sweden.
Yeah.
But only in 2 lifts. Is that what we?
No, he said powerlifting and bench press. So powerlifting, squat, bench, and deadlift, bench press, bench only.
There you
I
go.
gotcha.
Right.
So they test bench press as its own event.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's the only discipline that's on its own like that. So you don't have squat-only competitions. Not in the IPF.
Don't you do some other federations do deadlift only? I
Yeah,
think.
or some weird combination push-pull, like
push-pull.
deadlift and bench press.
But the
I think-
IPF is just powerlifting. It's what it's always been.
Yeah.
Yeah, even since when I was doing it.
Right on. So let's rewind a little bit. What's your whole background? How'd you get into training, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay, so I started, I was like 14 years old. I was doing boxing, and we were in the same facility as the powerlifting club in the town where I grew up, and those guys were strong, and being 14, so of course you want to be strong. So I started imitating what they did, and gradually fell out of love with the boxing and went into powerlifting, and I've been stuck since then.
You're from Vasa, right?
I am.
Yeah, my first international competition was in his hometown. So in 1996, a long time ago. Gave my age away, but
Wait, that's,
yeah.
what country is that?
In Finland.
In
He's
Finland.
he's from
Yeah.
Finland
Yeah.
originally, and so it just brings me back to like one of my favorite moments of my life back
Yeah.
then. So
Well, so is that something that you just excelled in right away, and so you just decided to keep doing it, or you just enjoyed the process of lifting weights and getting stronger? Or?
I honestly have never been very good at it. Like I'm a very mediocre lifter, but despite that, I liked it. And as you
we're
said,
laughing, but we actually feel the same.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm very mediocre at lifting weights. Like
Maybe that's why we like it so much, because we know how far there is to go.
right.
When you actually know what real strong people are doing.
Oscar, would you agree that a lot of people who were not great at the sport that they love end up being the greatest of coaches?
Yeah, it might be. It seems to happen a lot. Maybe because you really need to think about what you're doing to get stronger, because you're
Right.
not just born with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's totally accurate. Like if you're just bad, then you don't have any progress and you just never even want to try. But then if you're kind of good, but you see all these other people that are radically better than you, you're like, what am I going to do? Like you got to learn, try to figure out all the best ways to optimize your performance. But if you didn't win the genetic lottery, you're never going to be a world champion, but you still can get radically better. I feel like that's kind of where I fell as far as lifting weights. I never was like world champion caliber at anything, but I wanted to be really good, and so I studied a lot.
Yeah.
Were you kind of in the same boat?
Yeah, I can relate to that, and that's how I like to rationalize it to myself as well. It's,
Yeah. When did you start coaching?
about 2010.
Right on. And what was that process to getting to coaching Team Sweden?
So I personally I went to a lot of competitions back then, and Sweden is not that big. You get to know pretty much all the lifters in Sweden, regardless of level, and everyone comes together for nationals and stuff like that. And I just ended up talking to people, and I started coaching this one lifter who were picked to go to the World Championships. I think it was 2015, and as her personal coach, I went with her, and there on site. We had so many lifters, and we were only 3 or 4 coaches for the entire team. That's masters, juniors, sub-juniors, open. So I got to handle a lot more people than just her, who I went with, and it went okay, I guess. So they just asked me to come back for next competition and for next one, and since then I've been doing it regularly.
When you say okay, what does that mean? You won?
She won, yeah.
Yeah, that's better than okay.
Do you see the culture that in America?
Yeah.
The coach would be like banging his
Yeah.
chest.
And we fucking
In Sweden-
smashed everybody.
I won.
Yeah.
The athlete happened to do what I said.
Right.
I told them what to put
Yeah.
on the bar, and
Yeah.
here's my Instagram handle.
I told her exactly how to lift it. She was weak, but because she did what I said,
Yeah,
she won.
Exactly.
That's not what happened. But
Yeah, what I guess being drawn to the powerlifting thing. We're here at Alico. Were you ever interested in weightlifting, or has powerlifting just been the love the whole time?
I've dabbled a little bit in weightlifting. I was even worse at that than powerlifting. Who would have thought you need mobility, you know?
yeah.
It was fun, but it was not as fun because I was so limited to what I could do. By then I had already been training for like 8 or 10 years and just gradually destroyed my mobility.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of powerlifters, if you do it correctly, because the goal is on squat is to go below parallel, but not too much.
Right.
If you go too far below parallel, you're probably going to be weaker than everyone else. So if you train like that too long, that's going to be your mobility, and that doesn't work in weightlifting.
Pretty much.
So
Yeah. When becoming a coach, especially coaching, elite athletes, what has been that education process for you? Whether it's certs, in-person coaching, but where have a lot of your inspirations come from, and a lot of the learning pieces?
Oh, it's a hard question. Like, how much time do I have?
That's why we're
good,
here.
yeah.
45 minutes
Say all of it.
minimum.
Yes, obviously there are. I have some education. I have a master's in exercise science and physiology. That's like a base, pretty much. But I wouldn't say that has mattered that much, because I really think that you learn from other people doing the same thing, like other coaches. And there are just so many today that are so good. From the top of my head, I can think of Mike Tuchscherer of Reactor Training Systems.
absolutely. Yeah.
Bryce Lewis of the Strength Athletes. Boris Shiko, of course.
I was going to ask you, this in powerlifting is always going to be the Boris Chico, or, some people still do Westside Barbell,
Yeah.
Louis Simmons, but I figured most people around here are going to do more of a Chico.
Yeah, and
What is that model? I'm actually not familiar with him.
it's like medium to low intensity, high volume, high frequency, high specificity training model. You basically just do the competition lifts a lot. The general idea is to just build proficiency in the lifts. And then you have like the Norwegian model of powerlifting, which is very similar, but they have a little more diversity, so a little more alternative exercises, but still the same medium intensity, and just hammer them with volume. It's very big contrast to the West Side model, which is higher intensity.
Well, I agree, and I love Louis Simmons and Westside Barbell, but somewhere in the middle is the beauty. Like, I'm not a Boris Chico, I'm not going to follow that, but some more Norwegian, somewhere in the middle, like some conjugate, some alternative exercises, but like somewhere where you gotta be specific.
Yep.
And the people who Westside Barbell, when I used to compete against them, they may or may not be able to pick the weight out of the rack, and if they hit the groove just perfectly and stand it up, they're gonna hit a big number, or they're gonna bomb out. But what I'm saying, the proficiency of the movement was not that good. But if you watch some of Boris Chico's people, they're all gonna move beautifully. If you think about what's that one lifter who deadlift? Of course, he's not IPF. But he deadlifts like 900 and something pounds. Totally blanking out. But anyway, he's actually probably better than Ed Cohn ever was. But his movement is like perfect, and so that would be the difference in like a West Side and a Chico guy.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I'm actually really interested. I've never interviewed somebody that grew up in a weightlifting scene that was not in the U.S. Which is really interesting. When you're growing up in this and learning, and you have different idols and everything, what are the thoughts of the American system, which really stems out of West Side?
It's a good question.
He thinks we're weak, is what he's trying to say nicely. No,
We're definitely not weak.
didn't mean to offend you.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, everyone has heard of West Side, and everyone's kind of familiar with it. Maybe not into detail, but you're just roughly familiar with it. And I think the main point is just take what's useful, discard the rest, try it out for yourself.
Exactly.
So I don't buy into one concept as a whole, but you gotta cherry pick what's good in there.
Yeah.
I agree.
So what is your personal style these days like, and how's it developed over the years?
Well, it has developed a lot to begin with. I think it's still developing. I hope. But like I said, I think I would like to take the middle ground somehow to just. I don't buy into like the far right, if you will, the Boris Shako gang, and not the West Side gang on the other flank either. Just somewhere in the middle, little more middle road kind of guy. If anything, I would have to lean more towards the proficiency rather than just go max out all the time.
So if you're like doing an off-season training and you're it's like kind of more like an upper body bench press day, like what does a day look like for you?
Or is there that? Because in the Shiko, there's not that. They always squat, bench, deadlift. They don't have like an upper and a lower. But so what
sure.
is it?
Yeah,
What
just
is
give me
a
an
typical
example of a
day?
workout that you would typically write. Like what's like a template if you have one?
To begin with, if we're taking just let's say a bench only person, then I would start with like settling for 3 or 4 bench workouts, bench slots throughout the week, because I think that's usually the frequency you would like to go for. Maybe if you've just been benching once a week before, maybe just not hop straight into 4 times a week immediately, but work gradually towards that, because I think that's the frequency we need to get the volume we need without having 4-hour-long sessions.
Because again, you personally and you train people that just compete in bench press.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
They're again kind of rare. Most of them do powerlifting, but same principle. So you have your slots for bench, squat, and deadlift, and you need to distribute that over the week in a somewhat intelligent fashion. Usually 3 or 4 times squat, 3 or 4 bench, and 2 to 3 deadlift. And obviously you can't go all in on any of them all the time, because that equation doesn't work out.
Beats you up, yeah.
So you have to puzzle it, fluctuate the intensities and the volumes in some.
Are you mostly tracking weekly volume? Is that how you look at it?
Yeah, volume and more number of lifts in different ranges, intensity ranges. I don't think the tonnage doesn't tell you anything, because you can do 10 reps with a bar, and that's 200, and you can do 1 lift with 200, the same volume, but it's not the same training effect. So I like to track the number of lifts in the different lifts. And
like different zones of lifts.
Yeah.
There's
something arbitrary, like 60 to 70%, 70 to 80, something like that, just to get some rough idea of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Point being, everyone can handle different amounts of volume, so just got to start somewhere and just see what happens.
Yeah.
You can just write a good training program like that. You just have to do something. And then see what happens, and adjust as you go. Yeah,
I kind of pulled you onto the weekly question, but back to the daily question. Like, what does a day look like for the bench press example?
Well, it's prehab or warm up as needed. Like if you're 16 years old and healthy, you don't need very much.
Get after it.
Just wave your shoulders a bit, and then you're good to go. But as you get older and more beat up, you need to do more prehab stuff to just get everything functioning as you need. So maybe it's some upper back activation, rotator cuffs, mobility, whatever.
Yeah.
And then move into the main exercise, and depending then on the rest of the week's workouts, then that might be or not be a heavy day or not. It's or an alternative exercise. Let's say it's your main bench. You work up to something reasonably heavy, leaving some in the tank, and then working back down for a few back down sets. Again, leaving something in the tank, and move on to whatever assistance exercises that benefit you.
What are those? Like, what are some assistance exercises that you would recommend?
Let's take you for an example. Where do you miss your benches when you in competition?
Off my chest.
Yeah.
I mean, like.
Yeah,
if
most people do.
Yeah, most people do.
So then I would. It's reasonable to assume that you need to train your the start position more.
Right.
So first, make sure that your positioning is good, that your tension is good, your precision, not even the strength. Just
right.
You're setting up okay.
Right.
So maybe some prehab warm-up exercise that facilitate that you really get your arch up and your shoulders and upper back firing. Then we can look at, are you just weak in the bottom position? Maybe you need to train with long pauses in the bottom.
Right.
Get more exposure for the bottom position.
Right.
You can have like spoto presses with a long floating pause in the air above the chest, not touching. or pin presses to really start from zero momentum. Something like that. Figure what works out for you.
Have you ever done any isometric training? You know, where it's like it starts on your chest, and
Yeah.
maybe there's pins a few inches above that, and you press into the pins.
Yeah,
3 inches.
I've dabbled with that. I find it so difficult to set up that most people just don't do it.
I know. So I agree. And so I think if you can, obviously isometric contractions are one of the quickest ways to get strong.
Yeah.
That would probably be reserved for like the elite guy, you know,
Yeah.
someone who's like going to take the time because he's trying to beat, you know, he's trying to get that 1% edge.
Yeah.
You know, I did a lot. You know, Charles Pulligan is one of
Yeah.
the first people that helped me with that. And,
Yeah.
you know, it would take forever, but you would do it right off the chest a few inches. Then you would have a middle range. You'd start like say 4 inches above your chest, go to 10.
Yeah.
Then you would do the top end, and the whole workout was just nothing but isometric work.
Yeah.
But it really worked.
Yeah.
So if you want your bench press, there you go. You're welcome. So
You structure those as like a 5-second rep max. So like you press it off your chest, you press it into the pins, and whatever you can hold for 3 seconds or 5 seconds is the weight you're looking for.
You would do like 3 sets of like 5 to 6 from the bottom. Then you go to the middle, 3 sets of 5 to 6. Then you go to the tip top, and then after all that, so you've done 9 sets already. Take it all away. Then you're doing you finish. I always like to finish full range of motion, just so you know timing and technique is correct. But that one, I only did that for a few weeks. It was like 8 weeks, and my bench press shot up 10 kilos. It was a pretty good jump for the bench press. That is.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
there you go.
When we're talking about bench press, are you assuming in the back of your head that we're mostly talking about like equipped press, like where you have multiply bench shirt on, or are you mostly talking about raw lifting?
Mostly raw. Yeah. It's the equipped lifting in Sweden has gone down over the past
Pretty much
10
worldwide.
years. Yeah.
Same as America.
Yeah. I think that's the trend.
Did you ever get into it yourself?
Yeah, as we talked before, when I started, there was no raw lifting. I had to do equipment. I always hated it. So I was really happy when we actually had the first unofficial world championships in raw lifting here in Sweden in 2012, I think.
Oh wow.
In Stockholm. Before that, it was all equipped.
Were you guys one of the first countries to start moving into the raw scene?
Yeah, I like to think so. Yeah, at least on the competition side, like officially.
How was that transition with a lot of the lifters here? Were they like bothered that they couldn't lift as much? Did they think the sport was going in a direction they didn't want?
There's always some
All the old
traditionalists,
people.
yeah, that like the way it was, and
Yeah.
I think the raw lifting is not real lifting, and you take out the skill component and
Yeah.
arguments like that.
Where do you see your kind of the best qualities in your coaching? Is it program design, communication with athletes?
Technique.
Yeah.
Oh, it's always hard to judge yourself and try.
Not us Americans. We'll talk about ourselves forever.
I'll tell you all about it. Yeah.
I like to think that I have an eye for technique, seeing what the problem is, and just jumping into conclusions of how to fix that, and how to just in somewhat intelligent way just incorporate that into your training.
Let me go and get deeper. All right, so start with squat.
Yep.
Give us some like basics of technique that might be absolutes. Everyone should do X with their movement.
So there are very few absolutes and
I
a lot
agree.
of variables.
I
think
like you a lot.
I think of two absolutes that are non-negotiable. First should be your positioning of your rib cage towards your pelvis, like
down.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed.
Because that helps with bracing.
Right.
Second one is breathing, IAP.
Inter-abdominal pressure.
Exactly. Those two go into each other. You really need to do that regardless of what your squat technique or style or your build is. You need to get that down. Then, however,
let me get specific there.
Sorry.
With the bracing,
Yeah.
you say, like, tell me, how do you teach it? Do you teach it, push out against your belt, just in the front, sides, around, like what?
Yeah, so I actually think the belt is a really good learning tool because
Yeah.
it gives you tactile feedback.
Right.
But if you have no belt, I usually start with. I don't teach that many beginners, but when I talk to people about it, I usually have them push their fingers
Me
into
too.
the sides of their belly
Mm-hmm.
and try to blow up your belly,
Right.
just expand all the way around. And trick is it's easy to do this while you're sitting or standing up, but to do this and maintain it while you're squatting, it's hard
Right.
if you're not used to it. That's where the belt comes in. It's a good feedback tool to actually feel like you should be a little loose, and you should press your belly out towards it, and you should feel this Yeah, this touch, this feedback all around, all the way, up and down.
all the way in like a tire.
Yeah.
Because you feel it very well. Like, oh, I lost it in the bottom. It's
Yeah.
okay. I need to think about that.
I actually find that is where the majority of people lose lifts. It's very rarely in their legs. It's you see their core, they lose their core at the bottom.
I think every great powerlifter would say eventually you get so strong that it's your back it'll be your torso that gives.
Yeah.
Your legs will be able to support it. I think if you look at a leg press, that would tell the tale because everyone can leg press more than they can squat because it's taking the torso out of it. Obviously, the way it's designed, it's going to take another 30% out of it. So, but like you still with that, knowing that you're only lifting really 70% of what it's truly, you're still doing way more than you can squat.
Yeah.
So that should tell you. So your torso, like he said, the inner abdominal pressure.
And even if you don't miss lifts, one of the easiest ways to see kind of that weak core is when people go to stand up and they aren't able to keep that back angle and their hips shoot all the way up.
And the flexion.
Yeah, and then basically you end up doing like a giant good morning, which is just super gnarly on your low back. That's not going to happen
with real weight.
Yeah.
So, all right, so what about like, some people talk about spreading the floor. Some people talk about grabbing the ground with their feet and like, externally rotating. Do you teach any of that?
That would fall into the variables category that I really don't put that much value into it. Like whatever you do, whatever works for you, that's great.
Right.
It's not that what's going to make or break your squat. If you like standing really wide and pushing your knees out, fine. That's as long as your squat look good, like in general, then that's fine. Do that. If you like to stand really with a narrow stance and just shoot your knees forwards over your feet, sure. As long as you can get to the required depth and get up again if it's a powerful position for you, then fine, because we are so anatomically different that we need to have such different stances.
How do you find that with so many different body types? And is there a very simple test that you have people do to figure out what looks optimal for them?
It's a hard process. It is, and it's you don't get as much time as you need to actually really dive into it. But you can do some educated guesses just based on what people look like. Like by now I formed an idea like what you should squat like, just by watching you for a while. But then,
what would you say? Wide stance, medium stance, close stance?
No, I was just boasting. I don't actually know. I haven't seen you move.
You can judge him. You can judge him. He goes real narrow, narrow front squats on.
That's because I have to, because I have bad hips. When I was competitive, I was medium.
Okay.
I have shorter.
I just assumed that being American, you would do super wide stance.
No. I agree with everything you're saying. I do not. I love West Side, and I've learned a lot. And I agree with what you said about them. You take the good and leave the other. I agree. I pretty much agree with everything you said. So
you went weightlifting first at a high level, and then went to powerlifting.
Then went to powerlifting, and I never got.
So that's a background most people don't have.
Right. So it taught me a lot. Weightlifting already taught me that frequency is important.
Yeah.
I know the more I snatch, the better I get at the movement.
Yeah, right.
So I always assume the more I squat, the more I bench, the better I'm going to get, which is totally true. All right. So what about there's so many of these variables. Some people teach this stuff as absolute. It's absolutely bullshit. Is what it is. But like, what about sitting back versus sitting down? Or is there something new? I don't know. How else could you get there?
Sit forward.
Sit forward, man.
Sit forward, anybody?
I don't know about that, but so what would you say?
I would say like the main goal is to hit required depth.
Sure.
So that's gotta dictate how you do it, and then B, you gotta be in a strong position so you can move the most weight, and C, it's gotta be a style that's sustainable so you don't get any acute or chronic injuries like overuse injuries. So all those three need to go together. And your style, however you squat, gotta fulfill all those three requirements.
Right.
So if sitting back is a good strategy for you to squat a lot, and you're strong in it, and you hit depth, and you don't get injured by it, then fine, go ahead. I personally can't do it. I need to sit down between my legs. That doesn't make one better than the other. It's just we're different.
I agree. I think if you sit back, obviously you're getting hip flexion dictates depth pretty much more than anything. Yeah. So the minute you sit back, you're already flexing the hips, and so you're going to reach your maximum range of motion sooner. Yeah. So like you said, if you sit back and you can't reach depth, then you can't sit back.
No, exactly.
Then you got to sit down.
Yeah.
So great. This is fun.
Or anything in between there. It's like two extremes, and it's a continuum.
Right.
When you think about back angle, is there something specific that you're looking for as far as body type? as far as like a more leaned over. I guess
just like
I don't want to say low bar because it just causes a big fight. But
some people
versus an Olympic lifting.
Like if you have a really long back, like the back segment is long in relation to your legs, then you're gonna have to fold over forwards a lot more to hit depth. It's just you have to.
Biomechanically,
yeah,
you
exactly.
have to, right.
It might or may not be ideal, but you have to do it to reach depth, and then you just got to work with it, make that a strong style for you.
I got one more question about the squat technique. Once you reach depth, when you're trying to come up, do you teach pushing into the bar, driving your feet through the floor, combination? Like how do you teach the ascension portion?
That's one of those cases where we like to try different cues and see what works best for that person. It's
so day one. What do you use first?
Good question. I would assume. I don't actually know. I think it depends on the athlete, but I think I would start with driving like your shoulders and head back towards the bar.
Agreed.
Just start somewhere and see what happens. It doesn't really matter.
I think a lot of times when you people when they think feet to the floor first, a lot of times the hips will come up, and then you'll get the angle shift, and then that can be a bad thing.
Yeah.
But if you drive into it and then you push, I think you get a better biomechanical position.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We mentioned Westside Barbell multiple times now. How much heavy lifting do you do versus how much volume do you do versus how much, we haven't mentioned yet, dynamic effort stuff where it's basically velocity training, speed reps, that type of thing. Do you incorporate speed work into your programming at all?
Not in the traditional sense, no. It's a bit implied that you should always try and push the bar as hard as you can, as fast as you can in every lift. Obviously, it's not going to move very fast when it's like 85% or more, but you should always have that intention for maximal recruitment of all the muscle fibers. But not many people around here do the traditional speed training with like very light percentage and just 3 quick reps.
I didn't either.
Actually throw the bar. I think it's kind of been proven that it doesn't really work as we think it would work. It recruits muscle fibers but doesn't exhaust them, so you don't really get a training effect.
So you don't get hypertrophy. I mean, I think it might help your technique some.
Yeah.
But there's not going to be. I think the studies have shown that like if for maximal hypertrophy, which is there's only 2 ways to get stronger.
Yeah.
Either get more proficient at the movement or add muscle size. And to get hypertrophy, you got to go almost to optimally. The best way for hypertrophy is to go to almost failure. Is going to recruit the most fibers and recruit the most or cause the most hypertrophy. So,
we haven't talked about deadlift yet. What are your general thoughts on improving someone's deadlift?
I would like to, for the record, I don't like deadlifts because I was always bad at them.
That's the best reason not to like something.
It really is.
I think the deadlift is the most unforgiving one of all the 3 lifts because in the squat and the bench press you have all of the eccentric phase to kind of correct tiny errors. But in a deadlift, your positioning has to be like spot on when you start to pull. Otherwise, you're not going to get it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So it's
that's totally me, by the way. I miss all my deadlifts at the bottom. So when I miss, I go out there and I'm just like, nothing happens. It looks like I had like 300 pounds too much on the bar. Like, thank you, everyone. Like, thanks for coming out. I did nothing.
We had Pitbull Torres at the One Ton Challenge at Olympia, and he had 700 to like mid-thigh. And then he dropped it, and I was like, what are you doing?
Some people.
Like,
it happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, I was just like, you got it off the floor. The rest is so simple.
I know.
But that's not for everybody.
Some people,
it just depends on your body type.
I know people that can actually. There was a guy at Spud. You guys, Spud Inc. Or Mark Bartley's his name.
I've heard you talk about him.
Anyway, like the dude could literally get 900 to there, but only could deadlift 7 something.
You just go fucking Breck Contreras, push those hips through.
Exactly what I was saying. Work those butts, man. Do
you do the hip thrust?
No, so
yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Can't you tell?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Didn't you see?
I missed
away from us for 2 seconds.
Wide angle Colton on the glutes as she walks by. Sorry, not you.
So on that note, earlier when Travis asked you about assistance exercise, and your first question was, what's basically the weakest link in the chain?
Yeah.
Where do you need to have the work? So if I can't pull from the floor, that's my weak link, and then there's other people that get it. They can get to mid thigh, but they can't get it. Like, what kind of assistance work would you do in my case versus the other case?
So we first got to rule out that there's something technical going on, like something funky with positioning.
Agreed.
Because
much easier to fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy to rule out. So if we assume that you both have good technique, then it's not the positioning. then I would, like in kind of the same way as with the bench press, I would do assistance exercise that exposes you to the hard part of the lift for you. So maybe pulling from deficits, pulling with pauses just slightly above the floor. Just get more isometric, preferably, exposure of that difficult range of motion.
Same as weightlifting, that would be. Agreed.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. What about when someone misses at the tip top? Like, that was not my problem. But, like, you know, the person who can get it to mid-thigh just cannot get their hips through.
That's usually weird. No, usually that's a technique thing.
Right.
I'm having a hard time to come up with situations when it's not, because usually if you sacrifice your back, by that I mean you round over in the starting position, you hunch your back a bit, that will make the start easier.
Right.
But then as soon as you get up and are about to lock out, you're in such a bad position to lock out mechanically, so you just can't do it.
Right.
But if you were to start with a more straight back, you would have a harder time in the bottom, but then the lockout gets easier. So you can choose where you have your problem. If you get what I mean.
So by the time they get to the top, their hips are mostly extended, and then they're still in some degree of lumbar flexion. And then to get all the way to the top, they have to produce a concentric movement, only using their low back.
Yeah, and thoracic
not strong enough
flexion,
for 800 pounds. Sorry, go ahead.
A thoracic flexion especially, and that's very hard to actually. We're not that strong to extend that thoracic spine. So maybe that's a case for just seeing over your starting position and maybe deal with the tougher start to get the better lockout.
For people that are,
Great point.
you know, for taller people or people that are just big, they don't have good mobility in general. Like some people can barely get their hands to the bar without. they have to round over to reach the bar, basically.
Yeah.
Like for those people, what do you do?
I'm one of those people, so I would like to know. Now it's for me, it solved the problem to switch to sumo. Because my hip is better designed to stand with my legs more spread than a narrow stance. So I didn't fix my mobility, just that assumed another position and it worked better. And I started training that one. If that's not an option, then it's, mobility is a hard thing.
Go play soccer?
It is.
New sport?
I think that a lot of times with mobility that, you know, doing that movement more often is the best answer. I don't think that, you know, a lot of time in this new world of like lacrosse balls and all these things like that. I mean, really, if you have X mobility, the only way to change it much that I've ever witnessed has been frequency of doing the movement.
Yeah.
And then you're only going to change X because especially how old are you now?
I'm 30.
So he's been training 15 years. He's had X amount of mobility, and he's done things to develop that mobility for 15 years. You're not going to do a lot in like with lacrosse balls. It's going to help him anytime soon. So
It helps in the for like the immediate lift, but
yeah, exactly.
when you go home that night, it's going right back.
It's going right back, and you're only going to do X. You're only going to get a small percentage of
Yeah.
help. It's going to release a little bit, but then. You know, you're not going to do much. You're not going to go and become Jean-Claude Van Damme. Does anybody even know that guy anymore?
I hope so.
I do too. Blood sport. But anyway,
He's coming on the show soon.
Yeah.
I'll talk to him.
He's on our go-to list.
All right, so let's now. I think I would agree if you would agree with me that the most technical lift of the powerlifting is the bench press. At least for me, because I was bench press was my worst.
Yeah.
But I got really. I mean, I became a world record holder in it. But I worked super hard at the bench press.
Yeah.
But there were so many things I could do to develop, you know, to work my technique a little bit that would add kilos to the lift. So like, let's talk technique on bench press.
Yeah. Most people don't have a good technique.
Right.
The best bench press to begin with.
Right. Agreed.
And I would agree. It's a very technical lift.
Right.
It's so much more than just extending your arms.
Right.
I think having a big arch gets a lot of. It depends on how you see it. Look on it. It gets a lot of hate for having a good arch, but also it's
Change the rule then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But getting a big arch is also what a lot of lifters focus on to get stronger, and that might be like a mistake as well, because that arch alone it's not going to lift the bar.
Right.
You can't have just a lot of mobility without the stability. So you need both. You need to have a really solid platform to press from, and if that platform is higher up, then that's better.
Yeah. Anyone who's ever done board presses knows that.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, they know if you have less range of motion, you're gonna lift more weights.
Yeah. So it's, in my opinion, people are bad at creating tension. Just getting really, creating a lot of tension, especially in the bottom position. It's easy, like in the squat. It's easy when you unrack the bar and have it on your straight arms.
Right.
You're probably gonna have good tension here. But as soon as you lower it and get down on your chest, you're gonna squish.
Yeah.
That's what usually happens.
Right.
And that's what you really need to focus on usually.
Is not letting the squish happen.
Yeah.
Right. So, all right. So on the descension part, are you going to talk about tucking? Or are you going to talk about sliding the forearms? Or just talking about bringing it down? Like, is it going to be dependent on the person, like everything else?
Yeah, of course. That's the official disclaimer for everything.
Yeah.
But I would say that's just one of the variables.
Right.
The non-negotiable, like the constant, would be to keep tension and keep your chest up.
Right.
So however you lower the bar, that your chest doesn't collapse.
Right.
And then we're gonna figure out after a while, like if you should tuck your elbows more or less and flare them, or however you should press.
Right.
That comes later. Just create this stability at first.
Right. I love one of my friends, Jason Coker, who he's a Westside guy.
Yeah.
But he really doesn't train Westside that much, which you'll find most people who are actually at Westside don't do what you think they do. So
No.
they're going to do pretty high frequency. But like he talked about, I used to think tuck, is what I thought worked for me. But he talks about sliding the forearms. And so then you end up having more of a bar, wrist, elbow.
Mm-hmm.
Versus when you tuck, you got bar and wrist back here and the elbow here. And so
Yeah.
it's not as stable of a platform as doing this. And it really, at this age, it really helped to be able to increase my bench press as an old guy. So, but
I actually have never even taught or really heard of the tuck. Can you go into a little bit of the benefits of that? I've always just structurally, it always made more sense to have everything lined up
and go
elbows
just
in
go
tight.
down,
You're going to have a vertical forearm for the most part, no matter what.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, when they get tired, especially on the concentric piece, they'll be here, and then as they come up, they fly out like that. It happens all the time.
Well,
I thought you were talking
about. Well, okay. So here's the thing: is like when you arch, you want to touch at the highest point that you're legally allowed to touch, and to get there, to be in a good, you don't want to go like that.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you have a vertical, as vertical as possible.
Yeah.
So you slide or tuck or whatever to get to there, and then yes, you want to. Most people, West Side, Louis used to say press straight, but I think now we can all agree that you want to press back because you want to limit that lever, at the shoulder. So you want to press back and up. So
that's the second biggest thing I would say.
Is back.
Yeah. Pressing back towards your face, not straight up.
Yeah.
So that puts you in a really bad position at the end of the lift.
Right. Yeah, because
bar's way out in front of you.
Yeah.
You
can't
lower.
Can't save that.
It's that shoulder flexor moment. Like you limit it then. I mean, makes it less hard. To put it in simple terms.
That also goes in with tucking your elbows. It's a way of getting your elbow a little bit in front of the barbell, looking from up.
So you can
so you naturally push that way rather than
when I
that
see
way.
you do it and we're sitting vertically and I see you in that position, it looks super funky. But laying down with your belly up, it makes more sense. I just saw you tuck your elbow and I was like, why would anyone do that?
Yeah.
But you're actually pushing back on the bar towards your head to get into a good
fair,
position.
Right. And
Yeah.
you made a good point. Like when you tuck like that, if you decide to tuck, I like sliding it first. But if you can't get the bar going back, then I'm tucking, because then you're going to be able to push back.
Yeah.
It's almost like a catch. Like really, I call. Sometimes I use the cue throw the bar. So you're like I do a lot of leg drive. So you throw it, catch it, and press it. It seems to work with a lot of people. But
Yeah.
Do you do any incline or decline benching as part of your programs?
Yeah, that would be a good, like, non-specific general hypertrophy movement if you're far away from a competition and have the time to spare and the energy to put into that. Obviously, it's not specific enough to do close to competition, like in a pre-competition cycle, but further out from a meet, then sure, if it's a good movement for you, that's pain-free and you're able to build some muscle with it, go ahead.
what he said is use it to get jacked.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what
That's
I
what I
heard.
heard.
I heard that too.
Yeah.
Same for dumbbells and any other machines and or gymnastics movements, etc. Like how much of the other stuff do you do off season?
How much is hard to say, but more of it, anything non-specific, more of that, the further away we are from a meet.
Accumulation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
How much GPP or just general fitness goes into it?
I think people should
like breathing hard.
Yeah.
I think people
Funds?
should
Go
probably
ahead.
do it more than they do.
Yeah.
To answer your question in a weird way. there's something to say about like having a sufficient cardiovascular capacity to actually be able to recover from your training.
Sure.
We did the 1-ton challenge in Vegas at Olympia,
Yeah.
and I put them on a 15-minute clock. We had 3, pit bulls probably like 200 pounds.
Right.
Super jacked. His
I know
freaking
who
traps
he
look
is.
like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
fucking skateboard ramp.
Yeah.
Giant traps. And then we had 2 other guys that were like at least 275
Right.
each, and like 4 squats in, and I was like, "Oh, you guys, we don't need a time limit anymore." Like they were breathing so heavy after
were
4
dying.
squats that like they're wrapping themselves up. It was basically just like a conditioning effort for them to get to
and that's
500 pounds.
I think that's something they should probably work on.
Yeah.
I think one of the, I love the IPF was my favorite going to there because it was very fast. And a lot of if you're not in good shape and you go to the IPF Worlds, like that fitness level right there would get you killed.
Yeah.
Because, like I was talking to somebody the other day who went to the IPF Worlds and they literally finished their whole meet in an hour and a half. So, like, those guys would be dead,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I like being conditioned because I can, it's all about, it is, when we talked about volume a second ago, and he talked about, it's more about how many certain lifts can you get in, but the more of those lifts you can get in, the better off you are. If you can, like, if you did, X amount of like 60 to 70, X amount of 70 to 80, X amount of 80 to 90, in 2019, 2020, the goal is to be able to do more. So if I get in shape and I can do more of those lifts, then I'm going to get stronger unless I get hurt. So,
are you programming much GPP, just general fitness work?
Yeah, I do some. Yeah, it's easy to overdo, but it's kind of low-hanging fruit. It doesn't require that much to get up on a sufficient level to actually be able to survive your workouts.
right.
So we're not talking like hours every week, but
Yeah, just a few minutes.
It's like 20 minutes at the end of your session to push a sled and
or if
you
you
do
prefer to
strongman
do it
stuff.
on your off days, then fine. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't interfere or steal too much energy from your main workouts, then just whatever.
Yeah.
Bench press, the leg drive.
Yes.
Yes or no, leg drive?
Yes.
Me too. Agree. Some people literally don't use leg drive at all. So when you say leg drive, are you pushing your feet straight down or are you pushing back?
So that also depends on the person.
Right.
But usually, what seems to make people click is to tell them to try to scoot over towards the head of the bench,
Right.
like push that
Push
way.
back. Agreed. Yeah, push back. Yeah.
And then you have, the way I see it, usually 2 main styles with the entire leg drive thing. One where you have a constant pressure from your legs to help create that tension and just keep you rigid. And then you have the other version where you actually allow yourself to sink in a bit
little
and
bit.
then
Yeah.
get the push.
I was just about to ask about that. Is that the one you prefer?
Yeah, I prefer the latter one. It's a bit harder, but I think if you master it, you can get a little more out of it.
Yeah.
It's a timing thing.
Yeah.
If you're a person that fails right off your chest, then that seems pretty valuable.
That was what saved me, because that was where I fell right off my chest, and the leg drive that saved me. It's like that timing. If you watch a guy like Dan Green, not IPF at all, but like that leg drive saves him too. That's why a lot of times you have the guys who are good deadlifters and you have the guys who are good bench pressers, and they don't tend to go that well together because the great deadlifter has longer arms, and a great bench presser normally has shorter arms. But so if you can create some pretty good leg drive and get the bar going, then you can equalize that. So.
That's a very interesting thing, though, because by doing that, you're actually just ignoring the part you're weak at.
Right.
You don't get any better at it.
Right.
So you still need to train your weakness.
Right.
But having a good leg drive helps you ignore that when it comes to competition.
Well, yeah, so like train it, but then in competition, try to, to make it not such a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
Yeah. When you're programming out for an entire year, how many big competitions does everyone have? And, how are you periodizing the year out?
I really try to talk them out of having more than 4 competitions a year, 4 big ones, 4 competition that we peak for.
Right.
You can do smaller meets, like local meets. We have this system here in Sweden where you gather points for your powerlifting team throughout the year, and you have a finals, like a series. So those are not important for the world level lifters, but maybe they want to do it because it's in their hometown. Then fine, just go do that, but don't peak.
Hit 90% or something, yeah.
But not more than 4 peaked meets in a year because it's really hard to have time to actually build up something to peak of.
Yeah.
So in a 12-week block, like how long is that kind of accumulation phase, and then getting people to a peak?
It's gonna differ, but I would say like it also depends on how you define peaking. But I would say no more than 4 weeks is a peaking period.
Right.
Like you can have more specific preparations before that, but the peak itself is not more than 4 weeks. So that would make it like 8 weeks, just basic training before that.
Right. So, I see you're saying 8 weeks of basic, 4 weeks of peak.
Yeah.
Go compete.
Yeah.
So now, how do you do? Do you do like daily undulating periodization, or do you do like 10s, 5s, 3s?
If you had to like define it, it would be daily undulating. Yes.
Me too.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
I think that's huge for like you know what I found, especially females.
Yeah.
Because if you do your 10s, they'll set tons of PRs. Their 10 rep maxes they'll get stronger and stronger and stronger. And then same sometimes even with like 6s and 5s, but then it sometimes won't transition to 3s and 1s. But if I'm always doing some absolute strength work along the way, I think you have a better product or a definite better outcome for especially females or even some males who like,
Yeah, I think it goes for both.
Yeah, I agree too. So.
Yeah, I feel like that just keeps people healthier too.
Yeah.
That getting the volume work in, and not just pushing 1s and 3s.
Yeah, that can
and
be
5
brutal.
being your highest set. Just never. You just don't get the volume work and just the practice of good hypertrophy and growing.
What about squatting every day? You know, like the Bulgarian method applied to powerlifting. Good or bad?
I've only tried it personally, so I haven't trained anyone with that style.
Yeah.
But I did it personally a few years back, and it worked really well.
Me too.
For a while.
Yeah, me too.
Then I hurt my back,
Right.
but I was really strong.
Me too.
Worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Worked.
Yeah. I did it. 2015 was like the last time I was strong. That's actually when you guys came to the farm, and I wasn't real strong, but I squatted I deadlifted 700 pounds, cold. Yeah.
Cold.
On
saw
camera, and so
Seen that video.
I
Sober.
was like, not sober.
Mostly sober. I was drinking.
Mostly
sober.
all day. Yeah. But like,
in the summer
but
in
it
North
definitely
Carolina.
helped me get strong. But I think that's pretty much what ended my being
Yeah.
able to be strong. That period of my life, like that was like the ending right there. That moment, I had like a few weeks after that, and then that's the last I've lifted heavy.
Yeah.
What I consider heavy. And so, yeah.
Right on, man. This has been a pleasure. We got a cold tub to go dunk into, and then a beautiful Swedish
Are you
sauna
going with
waiting
us?
for us.
I wish I could come.
I wish you could too.
You
This has
definitely
been
can.
fun. All right.
I don't know who's holding you back, but they're not making your life as fun as it could
so
be.
the government, my wife, has made plans.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go home, but it's a better decision to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm recommended to.
Yeah, I've been recommended to go home.
That's great.
I know about that recommendation.
Me too. That means get your
Can I
ass
just hang at
home.
the gym
Yeah.
for a little bit? You mind if I go train for 3 hours?
Yeah.
I recommend you not. Okay, I got
I
it.
normally get up.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
That means no.
Yeah, exactly. So if people want to be coached by you, like what is your coaching availability online? How do you run your program?
Yeah, I do some personal online coaching, not very much on a big scale because I need to keep up with the national team and my daytime job here.
Yeah.
But I'm on Instagram. My handle is Oscar Bjork, as my name.
How do you spell that?
Yeah.
That is OSCAAR.
AAR. You hear that, crazy Americans? You hear that?
That's the way you really spell it.
Yep.
Yeah, BJORK. So that's it.
B-A-O-R-K. Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have a website?
Not anymore. I don't.
There you go.
He's
Oscar
focused
Bjork.
on Eleiko.
There it is.
Yeah.
Coach Travis Mash.
Mashelite.com. You can do Instagram at Mashelite Performance.
Doug Larson.
Right on. Find me on Instagram at Douglas E. Larson.
I'm Anders Varner at Anders Varner. We're the Shrug Collective at the Shrug Collective. OneTonChallenge.com. Squat, dead, bench, snatch, clean, jerk. Goals to hit 2,000 pounds. 1,200 for you ladies. Get over there, download our free ebook, Making Strong People Stronger. We'll see you next Wednesday. Bow.